Hi guys, and welcome to our remote teaching and learning briefing. I'm going to be going through a couple of different assessment for learning or assessment for remote learning techniques today, in particular quizzes and using a rubric or success criteria essentially to mark students' work that they have submitted to you digitally. Now, obviously, we know that not every student is engaging fully with all of the work that we might set, but actually we found that providing feedback, whether that is automated feedback or personalized feedback to students, actually is increasing the amount that they are willing to participate in our lessons. And so it's valuable to them as well as to you to just keep that conversation, that dialogue of learning going between you and your students. So I hope this is helpful. Obviously, if you have any questions, please get in contact and ask.
So, as you already know, when we want to give useful feedback to pupils, we want it to have three characteristics. Firstly, we want it to be meaningful and individually linked to that pupil's work, their needs, and the assessment of what they've completed. Particularly with this online form of learning, especially using Google Classroom, one thing that we do find is that the work that we get back and the feedback that you provide is, of course, quite individual to that student. It needs to be constructive. It needs to be based upon things that they can actually improve. And this is where the success criteria or the automatic answers that come back through Google quizzes are really, really helpful. And of course, it should be timely. And again, the automatic feedback from the Google quizzes is super timely. And if you are going to try using the rubrics, what I hope you'll find is that it's much quicker to provide personalized, individualized assessment for pupils, particularly for long answers, that is based upon very clear success criteria. And what that should enable you to do is to give timely feedback. So, as we've already discussed, the tools that we have now, you've got a couple of options. The first thing is very simply to build your DIRT tasks into your lessons. And all that probably looks like is giving a set of questions, asking students to do those answers, and then on the next slide or in the slides following, you include the answers so that students can improve their work and learn within the lesson. Our second option is quizzes, as I'm going to show you, and our third option is to use a rubric. Now, this word rubric is not one that we use commonly in the UK. The reason I use that phrase here is that rubric is the word that Google Classroom is using to describe a set of success criteria which are given to the student when you assign them the piece of work, and then are used to assess that same piece of work and assign the number of marks or points that that student got for each criteria. And it gives them both detailed, specific feedback, and it already provides you or them with the description of what it is that they need to do in order to improve each aspect of the work that they are completing. Let's look now at how to use rubrics to provide detailed success criteria to students to support them in their work and to allow you to provide detailed but rapid feedback. One thing you will have to do when you are using a rubric is to plan it in advance of setting the task. You need to outline the success criteria in advance. What you can see here are the instructions that students received when I asked them to answer an 8-mark question, which was down here, about their fieldwork. And you can see already on the bottom here, they've been given a rubric with 5 criteria. They're able to click on this and identify what the criteria in this question are. I've asked them to ensure that they are identifying their key concepts, that they are giving balanced answers, that they are developing their points and explanations, they are making judgments, and they are using appropriate spelling, punctuation, grammar, and high-level geographical terminology. Again, within each of these categories of what I want them to achieve, there are 4 levels of achievement that they might get. And I'm going to use these not only in advance so that the students can see what I'm expecting of them, but also to provide the feedback. So, where students have completed this work, I can see it here. And if I click on it, I'm going to find the work opens up like this. So the student has attached a Google document for me to mark. And there are a couple of things that Google Classroom allows us to do from this perspective. So I could give her a mark right off the bat here, but I'm actually going to mark it first, and you should be able to see that along the side here, my rubric criteria are already outlined. Now, if I know exactly what each of these refer to, then I can mark it based on this and say that yes, she's developed her points. If I can't quite recall what the criteria were, I can expand those and say yes, she has clearly explained the key concepts, or actually they've been only briefly discussed. Under the rubric or the success criteria, I can add a private comment here. Or if I so choose, I can make comments on specific areas of her work. So for instance, by clicking here for a comment, don't forget that you do need to click comment or post in order to actually send those items. Eventually then I'm going to decide what mark out of 12 she got and then give her a grade and return it. Now what I'm going to do next is show you exactly how you can create this, and it is really, really simple. When I'm in the process of creating a new assignment, so say for instance another 8-mark question, I give some instructions. I might even add a document or create a document that I want to include with the instructions, maybe a map or image to provide as a resource. And then I'm going to go down here to where it says rubric, and I'm going to click add. Now I have two options here. I can create a rubric or I can reuse one. So if I wanted to reuse one, I have here the rubric that I've used in the past. But if I want to create a new one, then I get the option to do a couple of different things. Here were the criterion that we discussed earlier. So for instance, this was SPAG, and then this is spelling, punctuation, grammar. And I can add as many different criteria on here as I like, different levels within that criteria. I can also decide whether or not I want to use scoring. So I had shown you a rubric that did not use any scoring. In this case, I'm going to show you one that does use scoring, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, well, at the lowest level, they're going to get no points. They're going to get 1 point, or they're going to get 2 points, or marks for each of these. Oh, it's going the other way around. What you'll notice as you add criteria here is that the total number of marks available for that criterion are changing. You have a complete set of success criteria. Again, I've turned on the scoring and I'm giving each of these criteria a certain number of points. And then I can click save. The student will be able to see exactly what they're getting their marks for. And you'll be just like this, and you'll be able to mark it by simply clicking on the correct description of their work. You can then write a comment just simply saying, please improve your counter arguments, please develop your points more so that you are able to get 3 marks for that perhaps assessment objective. So one thing I'm really conscious of is the fact that this seems like a lot of work, but one thing I want to reassure you is that there are a couple of really simple ways to reuse them and not have to create them from scratch at all. In fact, even if another teacher has created one and you're a member of a Google Classroom where they've posted it, then you can take it from there. So, for example, if I click here, reuse rubric, you'll be able to see that I can select another class where that is the case. In geography, we as a department have a shared classroom where we're able to post items like this that we want everyone in the team to have access to. And this is my recommendation for the easiest way to share rubrics. The other way to share them is to download one into Sheets and then to import it from Sheets. And what I will do and send out with this teaching and learning briefing is the same rubric that I've just shown you as a sheet that you could upload in this manner and then edit to suit your subject. So it will be there available for you to use. And if anybody else wants help with that, of course, please do ask me. So if you are in your Google Classroom and you would like to set a quiz as work, you can do it in the following way. You click classwork up here at the top, then click create. You can set either an assignment if this is a quiz that you've already created, or you can click to create a quiz assignment. And what that will do is it will automatically add for you a new blank quiz, which you can click into and edit. And if you close it out of here, it will really just save automatically. Variety of different ways using different question types, and if I've already written some questions, I can import them from previously created quizzes like this. So for instance, that is a quiz that I have made in the past, and all I would do is I would select that and the questions will come up here on the side and you just select which ones you want to import at the bottom. A couple of quick tips for this: make every question a required question because you don't want the kids just skipping them. So to assign an answer to the question, you just click down here at the bottom. You select which one you believe is the correct answer, and you can give that a certain number of points that the student will gain for getting that answer correct. Then you can either create a new question below, or as we've mentioned, you can import questions from other quizzes like so. I would recommend that you start your quiz with a question asking pupils for either their name or their form or class code, just so that you can organize the data effectively afterwards. In your settings, you will notice that this is already set to be a quiz that assigns the point values to the question and allows auto marking. I would generally click here for immediately releasing the mark after each submission and allowing the students to see the missed questions, just so that they get that instant feedback. Their questions, and they find out what the answer was when they got them wrong, and they can see how many points they got for them. You can choose to collect email addresses, but I would just suggest that it is quite difficult to identify exactly which student it is off the top of your head just from their year group, first initial and surname, which you get out their email address, rather than the easier method of just putting a first question which asks them for their name. This quiz now, and going back to our classroom, you'll notice that I've selected here grade importing. Now personally, I find this one of the most useful features because it brings in the students' grades when they have completed the assignment, and that will look quiz 1 for tectonics. You'll notice that in the instructions it is the only item they can do, and in order to have the grade importing work, it needs to be the only attached document. Now, if I look at these students, not everyone's done it, but quite a few of them have, and I have a button over here that says import grades. Now, originally I made this out of 100, but the quiz certainly isn't. And when I click import grades over here, what I will find is that all of those results from those students and their retention quizzes just ends up in here on the left-hand side. So I can see who's doing well and who is not. I'll also find this same information now in the marks columns in my Google Classroom. So as I continue to set regular retention quizzes, I can see how well students are doing across all of the assignments that they are getting. Those are the imported grades for those students that have now completed that quiz.